A month prior to our wedding, my fiancé invited me on a camping trip in the wilderness. Around 10 p.m., he received a phone call and abruptly told me, "Maya, there's an emergency at work. I need to go back immediately." I hesitantly asked, "But we're in the middle of nowhere, and it's still raining. Are you sure it's safe to leave me here alone?" By the time I finished my sentence, all I could see was his fading silhouette. Not long after he left, a wild animal appeared, terrifying me to the point that I called him. However, the voice on the other end belonged to a woman who said, "Maxwell is in the shower. He can't answer right now." My mind went blank, unable to process the betrayal of my boyfriend of 3 years. Struggling against the heavy rain in the dead of night, I navigated through the jungle to escape the dangers around me. Meanwhile, Maxwell's phone became unreachable. As a result of that ordeal, I caught a severe cold accompanied by a persistent high fever, ultimately leading to a necessary induced labor. Yet, not once did he visit me at the hospital. I knew then that our marriage was no longer possible, but after I moved overseas, he came to regret his choices. Lying in my hospital bed, my head felt dizzy and the nurse's voice rang in my ears. "Mom, you've been admitted for 2 days. Hasn't your family come yet? We need a signature from them for the miscarriage consent form." After narrowly escaping death in the jungle, my fever had finally broken, and I was regaining my senses. "Doctor, please wait a moment," I said. "I need to call my fiancé." I picked up my phone and unlocked it, only to see the last thing I had looked at, a post on WeChat Moments. My fingers instinctively swiped, revealing a post from Maxwell's secretary, Ella. It read, "Whose boss is this? So considerate, buying me sanitary pads and making brown sugar tea in the middle of the night." The attached image showed Maxwell, dressed in a bathrobe, diligently preparing the drink in the kitchen. So the real reason he abandoned me that night wasn't a company emergency. It was to take care of his secretary, who was on her period. He could have waited for me to pack up and leave with him. Yet he was so impatient that he didn't even spare me a few minutes. If he had, I wouldn't have had to endure everything alone. My chest tightened painfully, making it difficult to breathe. Silently, I liked the post before exiting the app. For 3 years, we had loved each other deeply, and I knew he once cared for me. But ever since he hired a new secretary, things had changed. I was no longer his priority. Still, I wanted to believe in him, so I dialed his number. After ringing for a long time, he finally answered, but before I could speak, his irritated voice cut through. "Maya, what are you making a scene about now?" I already explained, there's nothing between Ella and me. She's even talking about quitting just because you liked her post. If she resigns, do you plan on taking over as my secretary? He had never spoken to me so harshly before. I swallowed the words I had planned to say. Whether I told him the truth or not no longer seemed to matter. "Take good care of your secretary," I muttered before hanging up. Forcing a grim smile, I turned to the doctor. "I'll sign it myself." Soon after, Maxwell called again. "Maya, since you're back, why didn't you let me know beforehand? I made a trip for nothing." His words left me seething. It was one thing for him to not have checked on me when I called him repeatedly that night, but it was another that it took him 2 days to even realize I was missing. "You left me alone in the wilderness. Did it never occur to you to check on me before coming to pick me up? Or is your secretary all you think about now?" There was a brief pause on his end, as if he had just realized the weight of his previous words. His tone softened. "Maya, take care of yourself. Work has been overwhelming lately, so I won't be coming home for a while." "Fine. Do as you please," I responded, my voice devoid of emotion. As I hung up, I gently placed my hand over my lower abdomen, which still ached from the procedure. Silently, I made a decision. Throughout my hospital stay, Maxwell never visited or called, and I never told him about the miscarriage. My determination to leave only grew stronger. On the day of my discharge, I returned home, only to find Maxwell there as well. He took one look at my pale face and stepped forward with concern. "What have you been up to this past week? You don't look well at all. You're going to be a mother. You need to take care of yourself, not just for you, but for the baby too." His eyes lingered on my stomach. "Why does it seem like your belly has gotten smaller? You need to eat more. Hearing him mention the baby, an unbearable pain stabbed at my heart. I was still mourning my loss, and now he suddenly cared about the child, when it was already too late. When I had first told Maxwell I was pregnant, he was ecstatic and reassured me, "Maya, just focus on the baby. I'll take care of everything else." But ever since he hired his secretary, he had forgotten all those promises. "Maxwell, do you even realize that I—" My words were cut short by the ringing of his phone. "Why are you so careless? I'm on my way right now." After hanging up, he rushed toward the door but hesitated, turning back to say, "Ella had a bad fall and can't walk. I need to go check on her." "Don't overthink it." I gave a small, indifferent smile. "Go ahead. I won't overthink it. After all, health matters most." My voice was calm, free of any anger. Maxwell looked uneasy, as if struggling to process my sudden silence. I used to question him often about his whereabouts, and more than once, my inquiries irritated him. He gave me a long, serious look before turning to leave. As I glanced around the house where I'd spent the past year, our supposed marital home, carefully prepared by Maxwell, I realized that while I had furnished everything, each item was chosen based on his taste. Nothing truly belonged to me. Since I was no longer the most important person in his life, there was no longer any point in proceeding with the wedding. I picked up my phone. I called my closest friend overseas, and upon answering, Lena's excitement was palpable. "Maya, have you finally decided to join my team?" "Well, as long as you're still willing to have me." "What do you mean?" "You're a design genius. I'd be lucky to have you." "All right then, book me a flight in 2 weeks." "But isn't your wedding around that time?" "There won't be a wedding." After a long conversation to reassure her, my friend finally hung up, albeit reluctantly. I went to the gym where Maxwell was working out with his friends, a place where we had first met. At the time, I was a temporary coach filling in to assist with his training. When we first encountered each other, he barely spoke, as if he had been wounded by love. Being naturally chatty, I eventually warmed him up to me over time. One day, a client asked me to spar, but he seemed more interested in provoking me. Maxwell, seeing this, stepped in and firmly put the man in his place. That moment made me fall for him, and he vowed that he would always stand by me. Now, I understand that promises, too, have an expiration date. The next evening, Maxwell came home visibly exhausted. I sat on the couch reviewing documents, preparing to return to the design world required study and effort. Maxwell, out of habit, reached for the cup on the table, raising it to his lips before realizing it was empty. He looked at me in confusion. "Why is there no water in the cup?" he asked. No matter how late he arrived home before, I had always ensured there was warm water for him. Whenever he drank too much, I made him a bowl of soup to help with the hangover. But I didn't want to do any of those things anymore. "If you want water, pour it yourself. You have hands, don't you?" Only then did Maxwell notice that something was different. "Maya, are you still making a fuss?" "I told you, there's nothing going on between Ella and me. She just twisted her ankle yesterday." I recalled the post Ella had made the night before. Just a small scrape, but look how worried the boss got. The accompanying image showed her bare heel with a tiny bandage. The way Maxwell spoke made the situation sound far more serious than it actually was. "Oh, I see," I muttered without even looking at him. Maxwell watched me closely. "Aren't you going for your checkup the day after tomorrow? I'll go with you." When I was discharged, the doctor had instructed me to return in 3 days for a follow-up. "Fine," I replied, "but let's use the opportunity to clarify everything, including cancelling the wedding." "All right." The following morning I went to the dining room, where a plate of shrimp dumplings had been set on the table. Maxwell looked at me and said, "Come eat." "These are your favourite shrimp dumplings." I stood in line for over an hour to get them before heading out to deliver some to Ella. My face hardened. "Did you forget that I'm allergic to shrimp? I can't eat these." Maxwell's face froze, embarrassment flashing across his expression. "Oh, then I'll go buy something else for you." "Don't bother. I'm going out soon. I'll get something myself." All right, be careful. I have urgent matters to handle at work, so I'll be leaving first. I did have plans. The bridal shop had just informed me that my custom-made wedding dress was ready. But now that I had made my decision to walk away, the dress no longer meant anything. Upon arriving, one of the staff members approached me, looking slightly uncomfortable. Miss Meyer, I'm terribly sorry, but your fiancé took the dress earlier to let someone else try it on. At that moment, a voice from inside the store reached my ears. Maxwell, do you think this wedding dress suits me better than your fiancé? You look good in anything, he responded. Hearing this, I was stunned. Anger slowly surged through me. How could Maxwell allow another woman to wear the dress I had personally designed? I quickly strode inside and stood next to him. What do you think you're doing? Maxwell turned at the sound of my voice, a flicker of panic in his eyes. Maya, why are you here? What do you mean? I came to try on my wedding dress. But how is it that my dress is now on her? The woman wearing my gown stepped toward me with a feigned expression of innocence, grasping my arm. Maya, please don't be upset with Maxwell. I just thought the dress was beautiful and couldn't resist asking him to let me try it on. Seeing the challenge in Ella's eyes, I instinctively tried to pull my arm away, but before I could even apply pressure, she dramatically collapsed to the floor. With a choked voice, she whimpered, Maya, please don't be mad. I'll change out of the dress and return it to you right away. Maxwell rushed to her side and gently helped her up. Ella, are you all right? I'm fine, she murmured. Go comfort Maya. Help her calm down. It wasn't intentional. Maxwell turned to me with a sharp gaze. Maya, why are you being so jealous and competitive? Ella has already apologized, yet you still pushed her? Apologize to her now? Looking at Maxwell, his mind and heart now entirely occupied by someone else, my chest ached. No matter how much I wished otherwise, I couldn't pretend that I didn't care. For 3 years I had loved him. Taking a deep breath, I gazed at Maxwell with disappointment. If I told you I didn't push her, would you believe me? He sighed and replied, Maya, can't you stop being so petty with a younger girl? I held back my tears. I won't confess to something I didn't do, nor will I apologize. Since she likes the wedding dress so much, she can have it. Without looking back, I turned and walked away. I had already made up my mind to let go of him, so keeping that dress was meaningless. Back home, I began gathering the belongings I planned to take with me. After packing for some time, I had only 2 boxes left. At around 2 in the afternoon, I was still asleep when the sound of the door opening woke me. Thinking Maxwell had returned, I got up and walked out, only to find Ella standing there. My body stiffened and I asked, What are you doing here? With a smug expression, she walked toward me, waving a set of keys. Of course Maxwell gave me these, she said, deliberately showing them off. My eyes caught sight of the heart-shaped bracelet on her wrist, my favorite design, a symbol of eternal unity, and the only one available on the market. The realization that it now belonged to Ella left me utterly numb. Take what you need and leave, I said coldly. Ella sonrió con ironía. Maya, you saw it for yourself today. Maxwell loves me now. As his former fiancé, you've been replaced. Be smart and get out, or I'll throw you out myself, I scoffed. If you want to take my place, have Maxwell come tell me himself. As long as I'm still his fiancé, you'll always be the hidden mistress. Ella's face darkened. Just wait, she spat before storming off. Shortly after, Maxwell called. Maya, I asked Ella to grab an important document, and when she came back, she was in tears. Why did you scold her? I hadn't expected Ella to run to Maxwell with complaints, and worse, she succeeded. I didn't yell at her, I said. She was rude to me and I only responded. Maxwell sighed. I know you're still upset about the wedding dress, but she already apologized. Let it go. I'll bring you a gift tonight, so wait for me at home. That evening, Maxwell arrived, smiling as he handed me a beautifully wrapped box. Maya, I got you the bracelet you love most. Opening the box, I immediately recognized it and, without hesitation, tossed both the bracelet and the packaging into the trash. I won't take something someone else has already worn. Maxwell's smile vanished as he stared at me in disbelief. Maya, why are you acting so unreasonable? You told me you liked it, so I bought it for you. I had reached my limit. Maxwell, let's break up. Cancel the wedding. His face paled. No, Maya. What are you saying? Our wedding is in just over a week. We can't just cancel it on a whim. I looked at him coldly. Is this all my fault? Think carefully. When was the last time you truly cared about me? Every time I needed you, you were always with that secretary. You even gave her the key to our home without telling me. If you no longer love me, at least have the decency to let me know in advance. I wouldn't have made a fuss, but instead you let Ella grow bold enough to come here and challenge me. Maxwell listened, and for the first time realization dawned in his eyes. Maya, Ella can be reckless sometimes. Don't let her words get to you. I exhaled. I won't anymore. But this breakup isn't a joke. He stared at me, shocked. Over the past 3 years, everyone who knew us believed I was hopelessly in love with him. I even quit my job as a kickboxing coach to be a housewife. If someone claimed Maxwell didn't want me, they might believe it. But if they heard I was the one leaving him, they wouldn't. Yet when disappointment accumulates, even what once mattered the most can be discarded. I know you're still upset, Maxwell said nervously. Let's visit your parents tomorrow after your checkup. Didn't you always want me to go with you? He was right. Our wedding was near, yet he had never met my parents. Every time he agreed to visit, he found an excuse to cancel. We'll discuss it tomorrow, I replied. I'm tired and going to bed. All right, I'll help you to your room. Pregnant women often feel exhausted. The word pregnant no longer made my heart tremble. I simply wondered how he would react when he learned tomorrow that our child was gone. The next morning, we arrived at the hospital. As we entered the doctor's office, Maxwell suddenly frowned. Maya, aren't we here for a prenatal checkup? Why are we in the gynecology department? I met his gaze and said calmly, The baby is gone. What's the point of a prenatal checkup? I'm here for a follow-up. Maxwell stumbled back 2 steps, his face filled with shock as he questioned me. What do you mean by that? What do you mean the baby is gone? You were obviously 4 months pregnant. The doctor who examined me this time was the same one who had treated me during my last hospital stay. Unable to hold back any longer, she berated Maxwell. Sir, how can you even call yourself a husband? Not long ago, your wife was hospitalized after getting caught in the rain and developing a severe fever that wouldn't break. To save her, we had no choice but to proceed with an abortion, and you were unreachable the entire time. Once the doctor finished speaking, Maxwell finally grasped the truth, that our child was lost because he had abandoned me alone in the jungle. His face filled with regret as he attempted to explain. Maya, let me clarify. I genuinely had something urgent that night. Why didn't you try to contact me when the accident happened? Thinking back to that night still sent chills down my spine. If not for my strong constitution, I might not have survived, and both lives would have been lost. Who said I didn't call you? I countered. Your dear secretary answered and told me you were in the shower and couldn't come to the phone. Maxwell struggled to remember the events of that night. I remember getting to the office that day drenched from head to toe and taking a shower. But why didn't you try calling me again later? He had been busy preparing brown sugar water for his secretary, yet now he dared to lie, claiming he was at work. I did call you, but I couldn't get through no matter how many times I tried, more than 10 attempts, Maxwell. At that moment, he recalled seeing my number flagged as blocked the following day. Even then, he had sensed something was off. Nervously, he grabbed my hand. Maya, I'm sorry. I must have hit the wrong button and accidentally removed your number. I didn't mean to. Please believe me. I stared at him with an expressionless face. He was just making excuses. It doesn't matter anymore, I said flatly. The doctor shot Maxwell a look full of disdain. Miss Maya has the worst luck to have ended up with a husband like you, though probably not for long. Without another word, I followed the doctor into the examination room. After my checkup was completed, I stepped out of the hospital and received a call from my best friend. Maya, I've taken care of all the onboarding procedures for you. Do you need anything else? I can prepare it in advance. No, that's fine. We'll talk when I get there. After ending the call, Maxwell anxiously asked, Maya, who are you talking to? Who called? Where are you going? No one. You must have misheard. I didn't want him to know I was leaving just yet. He was a possessive man, and I feared he would try to stop me. Maxwell studied my face, searching for any signs of deception. Really? Really, I replied with the same calm expression. Seeing nothing amiss, Maxwell said, Then go home and wait for me. I have some business at the company, but I'll come back to pick you up. Since my hometown was over 600 kilometers away, a round trip by car took 2 days. It was reasonable for him to attend to matters before returning. But as I sat at home waiting for him, the sun eventually set, and he never showed up. The realization hit me. He no longer valued me. Accumulated disappointment had finally turned into complete despair. At that moment, I felt nothing but exhaustion and indifference toward him. I grabbed the suitcase I had packed long ago, discarded everything tied to my past with him, and left without a backward glance. If Maxwell had cared, he would have noticed that my wardrobe, once filled with my clothes, had been gradually emptying over the past few days. Yet he hadn't noticed at all, further proving that I no longer had a place in his heart. Late at night, I arrived at the home I hadn't visited in 2 years. Seeing my parents' hair now streaked with white, my eyes welled up with tears. They had scrimped and saved to send me to the best design university, but I had abandoned my dreams for Maxwell. Mom, Dad, I've let you down. My mother's face was filled with concern. Maya, what happened? Didn't you say Maxwell was coming back with you? From the moment I stepped inside, they had been expecting another presence, and the disappointment in their eyes was unmistakable. He won't be coming back, I told them. I've broken up with him. The wedding is off. I recounted everything that had transpired. My mother hugged me tightly, her heart aching. Maya, don't be sad. You deserve so much better. With us here, you'll always have support. A parent's love is a safe harbor. Just then, my phone rang from inside my bag. It was Maxwell. I didn't want to answer, but my father encouraged me. Go ahead. I'll speak to him. Maya, let me explain, Maxwell's voice came through. I had urgent business at the company and didn't have time to talk. But I'm coming home now. I promise I'll go back with you tomorrow. Hearing his excuse, I couldn't help but feel both furious and amused. On my way back, I had already seen the photos Ella had posted. Thank you, boss, for accompanying me home to visit my parents. It's been so long since I've seen them. The attached image showed Maxwell laughing and enjoying time with Ella's family. My father took the phone. Maya is already home. You don't need to come back for her. Our family cannot accept a son-in-law like you. On the other end, Maxwell hesitated for a moment. Uncle, what do you mean? What else do you think? Didn't Maya tell you? You two are over. We agreed on that. From now on, you have no connection to our family. No, Uncle, let me explain. I won't break up with Maya, Maxwell protested desperately. I adore her, but Maxwell's affection is overwhelming for me. Let's cut off all communication. With that, I ended the call and blocked his number. After I disconnected, Maxwell repeatedly dialed my number, but he couldn't get through. That was when he understood I wasn't bluffing about ending things. Anxiety crept in as he frantically opened his navigation app, only to realize he didn't have my mother's address. Frustrated, he slammed the steering wheel and, determined to confirm whether I was serious, recklessly ran multiple red lights to reach home. Bursting into our bedroom, he yanked open the wardrobe, once packed with my clothes, now completely empty. Still unwilling to accept the truth, he rushed into the bathroom, where the vanity that used to be cluttered with my cosmetics now only contained his belongings. He scoured every corner of the house, yet found no trace of my presence. The only remnant was a discarded gift box in the trash, a stark symbol of my absence. At that moment, it truly hit him. He was losing me for real. Defeated, he collapsed onto the floor, his gaze vacant, as if he were a completely different person. The day after I returned home, I messaged my friends, informing them that the wedding was off. Many who knew both me and Maxwell bombarded me with questions, baffled as to why I would call off our engagement when I had always loved him. I wished I had lost my mind, if only to spare myself from this pain. Before long, Maxwell's mother caught wind of the news and called me. Since she had always been kind to me, I decided to take this one last call. Maya, I don't know what happened between you and Maxwell, but the wedding invitations have already been sent out. How can you suddenly cancel everything? What will this do to the Shu family? Don't be unreasonable. Come back, and I'll make sure he learns his lesson. We can move past this. She isn't my real mother, so she could never understand the suffering I've endured. Her concern is solely for her family's reputation. Aunt, I can't return to Maxwell. Please act as if you never knew me. The daughter-in-law you want, he has already found her. But it's not me. But you're carrying Maxwell's child. You should give birth first and then discuss this. It turns out Maxwell never told his mother about my miscarriage. How could he when he was partly to blame? Your son is the reason the child is gone, don't you know that? With that, I ended the call, indifferent to her response. After settling everything, I sat outside with my mother, enjoying the sunlight. Suddenly, the front door swung open. Looking up, I met Maxwell's gaze. He hurried over, crouching beside me. Maya, stop this nonsense. Come home with me. The wedding isn't cancelled. I've even arranged for it to be bigger. I want to tell the whole world that you, Maya, are my only wife for life. Does he still think I'm just throwing a tantrum? I am dead serious. My mind is made up. I pushed his hand off my arm. Maxwell, I'm not joking, and I'm perfectly calm. It's over between us. Can we at least part with some dignity? Why do you get to decide we break up just like that? What did I do wrong? I looked at him incredulously. How could he still have the audacity to ask that? Images from the past flooded my mind. One day, in a playful mood, I had asked, Maxwell, what if I broke up with you someday? He had gently tapped my nose and replied, I would never give you the chance to say goodbye. But what if that day actually came? It never will, I swear. He made so many promises, but in the end, those very words became the blades that cut the deepest. Fine. Since you don't understand, I'll show you. I pulled up Ella's social media posts and let him see for himself. The more he scrolled, the darker his expression grew. I never knew she posted these things, but I swear, there's nothing between us. She's just my mentor's daughter. My mentor asked me to keep an eye on her, that's all. I never had any other intentions. Maya, you have to believe me. She was just being playful. She never meant to interfere with us. It was my mistake not handling things properly, and I unintentionally hurt you. I truly regret it. Oh, is that so? If he still refused to see the truth, I would leave him with no excuses. I played the surveillance footage I had secretly kept. After watching this, let's see if you still stand by what you just said. The video showed Ella's calculated words at home, along with footage from the bridal shop where she had staged a fall, falsely accusing me. Maxwell took a few steps back, his face filled with shock and disbelief. Maya, I only now realize what kind of person she is. Wait for me. I'll return and make her understand. Our wedding will proceed as planned. Maxwell, there's no need for that. Even now you fail to see why I want to end things with you. Let me spell it out for you. When you abandoned me in the wilderness, I desperately tried to reach you, but you were too busy buying Ella sanitary products and preparing her brown sugar water. Because of that, we lost our first child. That same day, you allowed her to wear my wedding dress in secret and even accused me of forcing her into it. You had promised to come home with me, yet I waited all day and night while you enjoyed a warm dinner with her family instead. Enough, Maxwell interrupted, his face contorted in pain. It wasn't until that moment that he realized how deeply he had hurt me. Every moment he had ignored, every bit of suffering he had caused because of Ella, crashed down on him, making it hard for him to bear. He fought to stay composed. Maya, I know I can't ask you to forgive me now, but please, wait for me. Let me make things right and bring you home. After saying this, Maxwell hurriedly left my house. Watching his figure disappear into the distance, I felt an unexpected sense of peace. It turned out that I no longer wished to love anyone, and my heart felt lighter than ever. To ensure Maxwell wouldn't try to find me again, I had my best friend book my flight in advance. Just before boarding, I unblocked Maxwell and sent him a final message. Then I turned off my phone, removed the SIM card, and tossed it in the trash. Goodbye, Maxwell. Goodbye to 3 years of my life spent loving you. After Maxwell left my house and returned to his company, he summoned Ella to his office. Following a harsh reprimand, he had her process her resignation. By the time he saw my message, I had already landed safely. When my best friend greeted me, she enveloped me in a warm hug. I've missed you so much. It's amazing that you're here. Now I finally have some company. With teary eyes, I said, Lena, thank you for taking me in. She playfully tapped my forehead. Oh, come on, you're so silly. Love isn't everything. You still have me. Yes, love might be invaluable, but friendship was even more precious. I was about to embark on a brand new life, one that had nothing to do with the Shui family. Once I started working at my new company, my days became incredibly busy. Some say that a demanding job helps ease the pain of the past, and for me, that proved true. Maxwell gradually faded into the background of my mind. Later, my best friend informed me that Ella, upset with how Maxwell had treated her, lashed out at him online, accusing him of abandoning her. She even went as far as selling confidential company secrets to competitors. The damage to Maxwell's company was severe, and in a fit of fury, Maxwell had her arrested. Hearing this, I felt absolutely nothing. Whatever happened between them was no longer my concern. 3 months after I moved abroad, Maxwell came looking for me. He held me tightly, tears streaming down his face as he confessed, Maya, I love you. I always have. I've realized all of my mistakes, and Ella has faced her consequences. Please come back with me. I pulled away from his embrace and coldly replied, Maxwell, it's too late. Let's stop hurting each other. I've been doing just fine without you. Maxwell stood frozen as if paralyzed, unable to process my rejection, his eyes filled with despair and disbelief. Maya, I can't live without you. Since the day we lost our child, your well-being has had nothing to do with me, I said, my voice firm and emotionless. Tears welled up in Maxwell's eyes, but he let out a bitter laugh. Fine. Very well. We're finished. He walked away unsteadily, muttering words I no longer cared to hear. Later, while driving in a daze, he was involved in a serious accident and lost a leg. From that moment on, I never saw him again. Returning to the world of design, I quickly made a name for myself, earning numerous accolades and reaching the peak of my career. And with that, my story came to an end.